Hello everyone, welcome back to the Cut the Craps Politics channel. Today we're going to be simulating the results of the 2024 presidential election based on the congregation of various polls. For our candidates, we have Democrat Joe Biden, Republican Donald Trump, Independent Robert Kennedy Jr., and Green Party Jill Stein. Let's start by taking a look at states that we can deem as safe. So we'll start with Joe Biden. Definitely Washington, Oregon, and California. Hawaii, definitely Illinois. And then, of course, over in New England, we can definitely check off New York, Vermont, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, DC, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts. For the Republican states for Donald Trump that we can deem safe, it's definitely Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Utah, North Dakota, South Dakota, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee for sure, Kentucky, Indiana, West Virginia, as well as Missouri. We'll start by finishing off New England. If we go over to New Hampshire, I think we can call New Hampshire to be a Democratic lean. Moving on to Maine, we'll start off with Maine's at-large district. I think we can definitely predict this as a safe to likely win for Biden. I'm going to say likely. In Maine's 1st congressional district, I think we can call this pretty safe for Biden. And then Maine's 2nd congressional district, we will call quite safe for Donald Trump. On the opposite, we have Nebraska. Nebraska's at large, definitely we can call safe for Donald Trump. I think likely the 1st and 3rd congressional district as well for Trump, and likely Biden in the 2nd congressional district. Another state that is quite likely is Kansas to, not Joe Biden, quite likely for Donald Trump as well. The same can be said for South Carolina, as well as a lean in Iowa and Ohio for Trump. Another likely result is Alaska for Donald Trump. Is also leaning in Texas for Donald Trump as well. For Joe Biden, Virginia is quite likely. Colorado and New Mexico are also quite likely. And then now we're into it now. These are probably the most competitive states for the 2024 presidential election. Now, if you on here, you might be saying, really? Are those really that competitive? Especially Florida, as well as Minnesota. And I would as well say that those are probably not very competitive states. However, anything is possible. And we're going to take a look at polling as well as the history of these states in order to accurately predict who is likely to win. Moving on to Minnesota, I think we can see this as being a lean for Joe Biden. Donald Trump is actually polling within 2 to 3% of Joe Biden, well within the margin of error. It's very likely that this could become a highly contested state or even flip to Donald Trump. Although I don't think it'll happen, it is certainly a possibility. In Florida, I think we can also say that it is a lean for Donald Trump. This in recent years isn't very surprising. Even though Obama did win Florida, I do not think we are going to see Florida go blue anytime soon, especially not in such a highly contested race as 2024. So before we get into some of the most contested seats that are likely to decide 2024, let's finish off with North Carolina. As you know, North Carolina in 2020 went to Donald Trump. We are probably going to see that happen again as well. I think even a slightly larger victory for Trump. I do not think that North Carolina is going to start to swing back towards Joe Biden. He is polling worse there now than he was in 2020. Not terribly. He's not polling terribly, but not as well as he was in 2020. And these are the big 6. These are the states very much likely to decide the race this year: Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia. Let's move on to the West Coast and start with Nevada and Arizona. In 2020, Joe Biden actually won Nevada, just barely, but currently with current polling, Nevada is looking at a Republican tilt towards Donald Trump. Still within the margin of error, certainly contestable, could change any day now. However, with current polling, it is looking like Nevada will go to Donald Trump. In Arizona, Joe Biden also won this state in 2020 with a tilt. However, based on current polling, it is looking like this is likely, but I would probably put it in the tilt category for Donald Trump as well. So do remember that any candidate needs 270 electoral votes to be elected as president. Based on this, so far, Trump is at 252 and Joe Biden at 226. In 2020, Georgia was another state that Biden barely won. I believe it was by 11,780 votes. However, based on current polling, also, can we just say how 11,780 is such a close race? That is like seriously insane how close that was. But based on current polling, it really does look like to me that this is not just a tilt for Trump, but is actually quite likely. Based on the current state of things, that also would put Trump only 2 electoral votes away from being elected as president. In Michigan, if you remember, Joe Biden also just barely won this state. Based on current polling, I think this is going to be a highly contested state. However, I think that as it looks right now, Michigan is a tilt for Joe Biden. Wisconsin was also won by Joe Biden in 2020. Based on current polling, they're actually extremely close to each other. Wisconsin and Pennsylvania is where this race likely could come down to very close margins. In terms of electoral votes, they could become incredibly close like they are in this current prediction. Based on this prediction, Biden would need to win both states. Trump would only need to win one, which puts Biden at a significant disadvantage. I think we can say that this is likely going to be a tilt again for Joe Biden. Again, this is pretty highly contested, a lot of back and forth between Trump and Biden, and a lot of this comes down to personal opinion. I believe that Wisconsin will tilt towards Joe Biden again. I think it's going to be a very close race, just like Georgia. May come down to a couple thousand, as Georgia did in 2020. And our very last state on this list is Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, as you know, went to Joe Biden in 2020, just barely. And it's going to be quite hotly contested between Trump and Biden this year as well. With 19 electoral votes up for grabs, based on this polling you see in front of you, either one of them would have to win Pennsylvania in order to be elected president. Trump would only need 2, but Joe Biden would need these 19. However, based on current polling, based on 2020, as well as the general political stances of people in Pennsylvania, and this may be controversial, you may not agree, you may disagree, I believe it is quite possible that Pennsylvania will tilt towards Joe Biden and give him the 270 victory just barely. Now, I think the chances of Joe Biden win the popular vote, he may not. Trump may win the popular vote for the first time in history elections. Based on the polling that I grouped together from various outlets, as well as looking into the history of these states and how they generally vote, this is how I personally believe the 2024 presidential election may go. Again, this is going to be really close. I think the path to victory for Biden is going to be an uphill battle. I think Donald Trump is also going to have his own worries in the more moderate states of Pennsylvania as well as Nevada, of trying to keep his voters together. Jill Stein, I don't think has a chance at getting any electoral votes. Perhaps maybe one from a faithless elector, possibly from California. Robert Kennedy Jr. I don't think it's impossible for him to get a few faithless electors, perhaps from New York. Wouldn't be surprised from Florida either. However, I don't think he'll be winning any electoral votes in his own right. So that is all for today's video. Please let me know in the comments what you would like to see next. However, if there's something else that you find interesting that you'd like to see or you think other people would be interested in, please let me know in the comments. But other than that, that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, do all that stuff that everyone always asks you to do. And I want to thank you again so much for watching.